The microgreen industry is full of lies, half-truths, and cherry picking. I really didn't want to make this video, much less the series that I will begin delving into the facts about microgreens and pulling back the curtain on all the mystery and hype. I've waited months since my first video came out because there's many microgreen growers that I know and love and admire. So I hesitated. The problem is that I teach people how to grow microgreens too. And all of that hype gets regurgitated back to me, and I just have to agree with it and bite my tongue. You see, the entire microgreen industry is built on a shaky foundation. If we keep building on it, we risk it all crashing down and ending in disaster. Now we can kind of try to fix it, but it's like putting a band-aid on a serious wound. I think it may take tearing it down to its foundation and rebuilding it with truth and transparency in mind. Now, I'm not claiming that all microgreen growers are deceitful or knowingly trying to mislead you. A lot of them jumped on the hype train and never really did any research. Some did a little research, but they were looking for specific benefits and they looked at all of the data with blinders on. Others just hear wild claims, see a study, and look no further. And some are just good-hearted people that believe what others say. Now look, I want you to grow your own food, and I want you to grow microgreens, but I want you to do it for the right reason. I want you to have the correct information. I especially do not want you to be making health decisions on faulty, overhyped information. I'll explain all of this to you while I'm planting out some microgreens in real time. I want you to see that it doesn't take a whole lot of time to set up, and then it's basically set it and forget it. Now, the last video that I made about ending the microgreen industry had a lot of comments saying that we need a lot of microgreen growers because people are lazy. They said even if people know how, they're still too lazy to do it. Now, I like to think of people as too busy and not lazy. I know how to make a hamburger, but sometimes I'm too busy to make one, so I stop by a fast food joint. So for those that don't have 10 or 20 minutes to set up your microgreens, you can always buy them. And those that can spare a few minutes and enjoy the process can grow their own. By the end of this video, you're going to realize that you might want to grow a large amount of microgreens. So you have to be pretty well off to constantly purchase that amount of microgreens, or you could grow your own. Now back to all the hypes and lies. I will explain this to you with a simple analogy. Bread. We will discuss overall misconceptions. The following video series that we have coming out will take a deep dive into the nutrient content and benefits of each popular microgreen so that we can have a clear, concise, and fact-based understanding of what we're paying for and what we're putting into our bodies. So, if you've ever scrolled through social media or went to the local farmer's market, you've probably heard the buzz about microgreens. They're tiny, vibrant, labeled as superfoods. Some claim that they're up to 40 times more nutritious than their mature counterparts. Sounds amazing, right? And we'll get into that. Because is it really true, or is it just another case of nutrition hype outpacing science? So let's start with the basics. Microgreens are young seedlings of vegetables and herbs, usually harvested 7 to 21 or 24 days after germination. Some take a little longer, but generally that's about the time. They're not sprouts, which are germinated and you eat the whole thing, roots and all. Microgreens are grown in a medium, soil, or hydroponically, and harvested above the root. They're beautiful, flavorful, packed with color, make your dishes look great. You'll see them garnishing fancy dishes, avocado toast, and just tossing salads everywhere. You can find them anywhere from farmers markets to local grocery stores to high-end restaurants where chefs love them. But what about the nutritional claims? You've probably seen headlines or Instagram posts shouting microgreens contain up to 40 times more nutrients than their mature counterparts. Here's the catch. That up to 40 times claim came from one study that analyzed just a small amount of microgreens, specifically 25 varieties. And there are an estimated 1,500 varieties of edible microgreens. Now that study is about 12 or 13 years old, but that's the one that most people point to whenever they make these references. So that will be one of the first studies we dive into in our series as we start. After we get through that one, we'll go through many others. Now, within those 25 varieties that they studied, only a few showed a dramatic increase. Red cabbage and cilantro had high concentrations of certain vitamins, while others like basil and pea shoots didn't have nearly as much. The results varied on the variety, the growing conditions, and the specific nutrient being measured. So it's misleading to generalize across all microgreens. And here's why. Remember we said we're going to use bread as an example? We have a Walmart store brand and Dave's Killer Bread. I think by looking at the ingredients, we can all agree that all breads are not created equal. So when you look down the grocery store at the bread aisle, can you make the same generalized claims about all breads? Well, that's what we do with microgreens. Dave's brand has all organic grains and ingredients. The store brand has sodium stearolactylate, monocalcium phosphate, and ammonium sulfate. Yum! Dave's bread has 5 grams of dietary fiber, while the store brand has none. If we follow the same logic as microgreens, we could look down the bread aisle and say breads have up to 5 grams of dietary fiber. Would that be okay? Also, the store brand has 30 milligrams of calcium, whereas Dave's bread has none, probably from the monocalcium phosphate. So, if we assume that Dave's bread has less than half a milligram of calcium, rounded down to 0, we could say that the store brand has 60 times the amount of calcium as Dave's bread. Sounds like a bold claim, right? However, that is still only 2% of the recommended daily allowance of calcium. Not that impressive. But 60 times sounds impressive, right? By the same token, the store brand has no potassium, whereas Dave's brand has 100 milligrams. We can make the bold claim that Dave's bread has 200 times more potassium than the store brand. It's true, but it's still only 2% of your recommended daily allowance. Kind of crazy, right? So let's continue. The next misconception, microgreens are more nutritious than the full-grown plant. Overblown hype. Even if it's true, it doesn't give you a sense of how much actual nutrients there are, or how much you need. Again, this is based on concentration per gram, not per serving. And that's important. Most are based on 100 grams, which is this much. You're probably not eating a whole bowl of microgreens for dinner, right? At the most, maybe a handful on a sandwich, or sprinkle a little bit on your toast. Use some as garnish. Maybe a small salad. Now compare that to eating a full cup of spinach, or broccoli, or kale. Let's say broccoli microgreens have twice the vitamin C per gram as compared to mature broccoli. But if you eat 50 grams of broccoli, as opposed to 5 grams of microgreens, you're still getting more nutrients from the mature plant. It's not just about nutrient density. It's about the actual intake. How you're filling up your belly. So, if you skip the mature plant and you eat some microgreens, that small portion is not going to fill you up. If you replace that with more carbs, starches, fatty foods to satiate your hunger, that's not helping you very much. And at the same time, you get a false sense of security because you're eating a so-called superfood. You think that sprinkling a little bit on your plate is going to help you in some way. So the number of times something has more than something else does not matter without the context in relation to how much we actually need. If a microgreen has 400 times the amount of vitamins and minerals as its mature counterpart, but it's not as much as your recommended daily allowance. Is it really a superfood? And why just compare it to the mature plant? Has 40 times more nutrients compared to its mature version. Why not compare it to commonly eaten foods that are high in that vitamin or mineral? Broccoli microgreens have vitamin C content of about 49 milligrams per 100 grams. The U.S. recommended daily allowance for men is about 90 milligrams. So you could eat 200 grams or twice this much of microgreens, or half a red bell pepper, maybe even a cup of juice. Which would be easier to eat? Which is more cost effective? And this is just one day. Imagine this every day. So you can see that comparing them to their mature counterpart is just an overhyped sales pitch. And this is the stuff that we will deep dive into on an individual basis as we continue this series. We're going to teach you everything you need to know about each individual microgreen that you might be buying or growing and eating. So the other thing we don't talk about is people don't really know how much microgreens you need to eat for health benefits. And with faulty or misunderstood data, it's impossible to know. Most of the existing studies are on nutrient profiles and not long-term health benefits. So there's very little research on how microgreens actually affect real people over time. It was only a few decades ago when somebody threw them on a plate and called them microgreens. And most of these are based on 100 grams and not what people would usually use as a serving size. So this 100 grams of microgreens also doesn't take into account that they've only done studies on some nutrients and minerals such as A, C, D, E, and K. Now each time there was an incident of a vitamin being 4 times greater than its mature counterpart, rarely was it all the vitamins and minerals in it. So if you're thinking of sprinkling some radish microgreens onto your taco and receiving some kind of disease prevention from it, that might be a stretch. They're a nice bonus, they're great flavor, and they can be a part of a healthy, balanced diet. Not a superfood. The FDA has no definition for superfood, it's just thrown around loosely. So don't get me wrong, microgreens can be a great addition to your food. They're flavorful, and if you grow your own, it's guaranteed that it's pesticide free. And they do contain vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. They're also useful if you're trying to grow your own food in a small space. You don't need a big yard. They're great for boosting the nutritional and visual appeal of a plate. They're awesome little things, but let's not pretend they're magic. You shouldn't replace your whole vegetables in a diet, and it's not a shortcut to perfect health. In fact, we like to take a lot of our microgreens and grow them out to baby greens and full-grown mature plants. This is not only more cost-effective as you're buying a lot of seeds for the microgreens, but it also fills up your belly a little bit more. So nutrition is complex. No single food can solve everything. Microgreens are very different from one to the next, and just lumping them all in as microgreens up to 40% more nutrients than their mature counterpart is kind of just misleading. It all needs context, and that's what we're going to be doing in our series. So the next time someone tells you microgreens are a superfood, you'll know the truth. Some are nutrient dense, but not all, and it all depends on the portion size. Eat them because you like them and because they can be a part of a healthy, well-balanced diet, and not because you think that they'll transform your health overnight or even in a short term. Stay tuned to the series as we deep dive into the world of microgreens, one little plant at a time, so that you can make informed decisions on what you grow and what you eat. As we get into this, I want you guys to go through the studies with me, fact-based. Tell me if you agree with me, and let me know if there's something important that I overlooked. And then all of the microgreen growers out there, instead of regurgitating hype, can rebuild from the foundation up with truth and transparency in mind. That's going to make everything stronger than before and be helpful for all of us. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I read them all, and I might answer it in a future video. So I'm glad to have you along on this fantastic journey as we delve into the world of microgreens. Live to inspire, keep on growing, and be the change. We'll catch you next time.